Coming up on Phillies Nation, presented by BQ Basement Systems, Pat and Corey break down a disappointing first half of the season and what's to come. James Floyd catches up with top prospect Maikel Franco and his futures performance with fellow farmhand J.P. Crawford. Tommy Green joins us on the mound, and I've got the batter's inbox questions. That's all next on Phillies Nation.
What's up, everyone? This is Phillies Nation presented by BQ Basement Systems. He is Corey Seidman. I am Pat Gallen, and we are here at Fieldhouse Sports and Beer Hall in Center City, Philadelphia. Well, that's it for the unofficial first half of the baseball season. The Phillies 42-53. They are 10 games out in the National League East, and if you're counting, 9.5 out in the wild card. Well, some of the numbers, though, not pretty in the first half of the Phillies season. A .238 batting average, a .301 on-base percentage. That's 13th out of 15 teams, and their OPS .664. That's 14th out of 15 National League teams. The run differential, -47. You're just not going to win a whole lot of games when you play baseball that way like they did through the first half.
The Phillies' composite numbers in the first half is like a typical Delman Young season. A .238 batting average, a .301 on-base percentage. It's pathetic. They're also on pace for their worst batting average with runners in scoring position since 1971. That's how bad this first half has been. And you know, I was at the game last Saturday, and Ryan Sandberg said before Saturday's game against the Nationals that the Phillies had beaten good teams, and that at least was something that he could draw some positives from. Is that true? But it's not true. I went back and looked. Maybe it seems like that because they've recently beat the Cardinals and the Braves, and they swept the Brewers. But against teams over 500 in this first half, the Phillies were 20-32. And against teams under 500, they were 22-21. So bad against the good teams and 500 against the bad teams, that above all else tells you what the Phillies are.
So it wasn't all bad. Why don't you pick out one good, one bad from the first half that stood out to you?
Well, the good clearly was the Phillies bullpen. Ken Giles, a .64 ERA, 13 2/3 scoreless innings heading into the break, striking out 11.3 batters per 9 innings. Justin DeFreitas also stepped up as the first half went on. Jake Deacon continues to be kind of an enigma. He has the dominant stuff. The results aren't always there, but this bullpen, you feel pretty strongly about it moving forward. It was a unit that was much maligned in April, but right now the Phillies have legitimate young difference-making pieces that have swing and miss stuff.
All right, how about your bad?
Well, the bad's Ryan Howard. It's kind of a shame. Ryan Howard looks like he's on his last legs here. Final 15 games before the break, he went 5 for 53. That's an .094 batting average. He had 2 extra base hits in those 15 games. He struck out 15 times. You go even further, 1 home run in his final 101 plate appearances leading into the All-Star break, and just 2 doubles in 24 games. His slugging percentage in those games was just over 200. It's been a shame because Chase Utley and Marlon Byrd have been hot much of the season. Ryan Howard has not been, and if he was, this Phillies offense would be doing a lot more.
One guy who's kind of been hot and under the radar, Cole Hamels, comes back from the injury, and I know the wins don't show, but everything else, he's got an ERA under 3. He's, in 16 starts, got a 2.7 WAR, and that's 9th in the National League. 106 strikeouts. It's vintage-type Cole Hamels stuff, but again, with the team playing so badly, you really don't notice. The bad for me is in the outfield, and that's left field. Dominic Brown, I thought after last year's season that he could hit the 30-home run plateau, that they would need that production from the middle of the order, and he just has not given that. A .227 average, a .279 on-base percentage through the first half, and just 6 home runs. He has it well with runners in scoring position, but it really hasn't been enough.
Well, we just said Chase Utley, the 3 and the 5 spots, the Phillies have been getting a lot of production. Well, the 4 and the 6 spots, Howard and Brown, they've gotten nothing. Right. So the half of the middle of that order has done very little in the first half. That's why the Phillies struggle with consistency so much. And as far as Cole Hamels, in his 13 non-wins, the Phillies have averaged 1.8 runs for him per game.
Not going to get it done. One guy that is getting it done, though, is Marlon Byrd. And a tweet was posted on Sunday from Ryan Divish. He is the Mariners beat reporter for the Seattle Times. He says that there has been some talks back and forth between Seattle and the Phillies for Marlon Byrd. Now, Seattle is on his no-trade list. That's one of 4 teams that's on that list. But let's talk about the possibility of Marlon perhaps going to Seattle. 263 average for Marlon in the first half of the season, a .310 on-base percentage, but really you've got to look at the power numbers with him. 18 home runs so far.
With Marlon Byrd, it's all about power and right field defense. There's only one National League outfielder who has more home runs than Marlon Byrd.
Is that right?
That's Giancarlo Stanton. So Marlon Byrd has legitimately been one of the top power threats in all of baseball this year. He's on pace to become just the 9th Philly ever with 80 extra base hits in a season, which is kind of crazy.
Wow, that is crazy.
And above average right field defense. A team like the Mariners could really use Marlon Byrd. They are lacking in the right-handed power department. And Safeco Field in Seattle is death for a right-handed power hitter, and they need somebody like Marlon Byrd to come in, get some doubles, get some homers. I think the Phillies would get a pretty good return.
Okay, well, what do they get in return? How do they make this trade happen? Any players standing out to you from the Seattle Mariners organization?
Well, I think the pipe dream amongst Phillies fans is Taijuan Walker or James Paxton, the two young Seattle pitchers. I don't think either one of those are coming back to Philly in a trade. Marlon Byrd's under contract for 2 at most 3 seasons, mid-30s. The age doesn't matter because he kind of has been well-rested these last couple of years, and he's well-rested out there on the field. But, when I look at it, I'm looking at a change of scenery candidate. A guy like Dustin Ackley sticks out. I don't think that would be the entire package. He would just be a piece of that. Ackley, a former first-rounder who's fallen out of favor in Seattle, a la Dom Brown. But I think a package would start around Ackley. Maybe you get a young arm. I don't think a Taijuan Walker or James Paxton is realistic.
All right, we also have to talk about another guy who's a possibility in any trade talks, and that's, of course, Cliff Lee. We basically talk about it every week, but there's something new to talk about, and Cliff Lee will be back in the rotation July 21st. That basically gives him 2 starts before the July 31st trade deadline. And when we come out of the break, the Phillies will have Burnett, Hamels, Kendrick, then Lee, and then Roberto Hernandez as the rotation is set up. Is 2 starts enough to show other teams that he's healthy enough and that he would warrant a trade?
Well, it depends on what Cliff Lee does in those 2 starts. If he goes 5 innings in each game, I don't think any team's going to feel comfortable trading for him. If he goes 6 and 7 innings and allows 3 combined runs, I think teams are going to start saying, you know what, Cliff Lee's never been on the DL before this with an elbow injury, looks pretty healthy, very easy delivery, I'm going to trade something for him. And this whole Yankees situation?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's get into that. Masahiro Tanaka might be out for the season. That's a team that could use Cliff Lee.
Absolutely. The Yankees are another team to look out for. Anyone that we talked about last week when it comes to Cole Hamels, Toronto, Baltimore, all these teams need pitching. They need help.
And that's the thing, is that the Tanaka injury, it has a domino effect here because it's not just the Yankees that the Phillies now have leverage over. It's not just the Yankees that need starting pitching. The Orioles and the Blue Jays right now. The Orioles probably smell blood in the water because they lead that American League East. The Blue Jays are struggling without Edwin Encarnacion. The Yankees are pretty terrible without Masahiro Tanaka. The Orioles are probably feeling like we make one addition, we're going to run away with this division and contend for the World Series.
All right, when we come back here on Phillies Nation, we will hear from Maikel Franco. He caught up with our own Jay Floyd, and we'll talk about his performance and J.P. Crawford's performance in the Futures game. Don't go anywhere. It's Corey and Pat here on Phillies Nation.
A name that Phillies fans were high on heading into the 2014 season was third base prospect Maikel Franco. The 21-year-old shot up prospect rankings a year ago when he slammed 31 homers and drove in 103 runs in a split season with Class A Advanced Clearwater and AA Reading. This year, the offense has been less substantial as he's batted close to the Mendoza line all year at AAA Lehigh Valley.
I expect him to be here, just another level, just try to coming in and doing my everything and work out and everything, it's gonna be fun to me.
The young righty batter understands any concern from the Phillies fan base based on his rank as the organization's top prospect. He wants to assure the Phillies faithful that things are about to turn around.
Sometimes it's hard to do because, I know I'm a young guy, but I'm just not think about this, just coming in, doing the best I can and work hard and everything. Just when we go out there, just not think about anything, just try to have a good game and help for my team and the best I can. I know it's tough one because last year I'm doing great. Now I'm gonna be in trouble a little bit, but I know it's coming. I work hard and die and everything, and I thought he's coming soon.
Franco credits his coaches with helping him push through the tough times and says he owes a lot to Iron Pigs hitting coach Sal Rendy.
He bring me made me feel comfortable and everything. He just let it go me play the game and play right.
Despite being far from home, the Dominican native relies on his family to also provide him with the support and guidance that any young athlete should have.
I mean, it's a little bit different because when we go out there in the winning ball, I see my family all day, every day. He come to the game, he come to visit me, he made me cook food and everything, but it's a little bit different right here. He watch it again, he got a program for watching again and computer, my dad and my family and my mother. But he got opportunity to watch it again all day, all night.
Franco's goal is clear. Like every other minor leaguer, he wants to reach the majors. But a player to which he's most often compared to, Adrian Beltre, has already set the bar at that level to which Franco's trying to reach.
So, he's my favorite player. I got opportunity to talk to him. He's nice guy too. He's amazing, great player. I'm following him, everything. I want to be like him,
Great stuff, Jay. Good stuff, Michael. And looking at his first half numbers, it's been an up and down first half of the season for Franco. A .230 average, just a .285 on base percentage, 6 home runs. He knocked in 42, but he has been hot recently, which is good.
.390 batting average for Michael Franco over his last 9 games with 10 extra base hits, 6 doubles, 3 triples, and a homer, driven in 11 runs. He was given a few days off to just watch the game and clear his head, and he came back, went 4 for 4 in his first game, and has been raking ever since. The Phillies need that out of Michael Franco in the second half from a confidence standpoint, and maybe a guy that they might call up in September to play some first base or third base.
I have a feeling that we're going to see Michael Franco at some point this season. We'll see what happens with Cody Ashley and that whole dynamic, but it will be interesting to see him. And he was in the Futures All-Star game along with J.P. Crawford. Franco goes 0 for 2. J.P. Crawford, though, 1 for 2, a stolen base and a run scored. What do you think about J.P. Crawford in his first half?
Well, I watched the Futures game. J.P. Crawford looks so smooth defensively
really
at shortstop. He showed off his speed in that Futures game. And, you know, what sticks out to me is J.P. Crawford made it to the Futures game a year out of high school. How crazy is that?
That's crazy.
J.P. Crawford right now is at the same level of the Phillies minor league system as Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola went to 3 years of college. So that just shows how quickly the Phillies are speeding Crawford through. He might be up here in 2 years. And he's sure looking like the shortstop of the future. It's a great sign to see that for the Phillies to have an up-the-middle young prospect.
That is a good sign. Let's go to By the Numbers. It's brought to you by BQ Basement Systems. Call them today, and the fine people there will give you a free estimate on your house, and they have flexible payment options. It's just that easy, Corey. And Jose Altuve, a nice first half of the season. It's so nice that, in fact, he was the second player in the last 100 years to have 125 or more hits and 40 or more steals before the All-Star break. Kenny Lofton the other 20 years ago.
It's unbelievable. And he gives hope to everybody who's 5'5" and wants to play professional sports.
Exactly. Also, the only player, do you know this, the only player to hit a home run in all 30 current Major League Baseball parks. I was having this conversation with the great Jason Stark, who joined us a few weeks ago here on this show. Do you know the guy? Do you know who that is?
I don't. Who is it?
It's Mark Reynolds, of
Mark
all
Reynolds.
people.
Well, he does hit a lot of homers. I wouldn't have guessed him.
He's the only one.
I would have guessed like Adrian Beltre probably. He's the answer to every trivia question like
It's true.
that. My 2 by the numbers. Jake Diekman.
Yeah.
On Saturday, the game that he was ejected, a game that he wasn't, happy about being tossed.
No, he was not.
But Jake Diekman, in that game, Denard Span led off with a walk. Denard Span was the first left-handed batter that Jake Diekman had walked all season. It was the 57th plate appearance Diekman had against the lefty, the first walk, and it came back to hurt him as Span came around for the game-winning run. That's my first. My second deals with your boy Mark Reynolds.
Oh, how about that?
If you look side by side at the numbers this season for Ryan Howard, for Mark Reynolds, and for Chris Davis, look how similar these guys' seasons are. 205 for Reynolds, 199 for Davis, 220 for Howard. On base percentages, all between 300 309, all have between 14 and 15 home runs and 90 and 115 strikeouts. The difference is Reynolds is getting paid like $4 million, Howard's getting paid $25 million. And as far as Chris Davis, we're seeing that last year's home run surge was not a mirage, but the batting average was.
Absolutely. And our last By the Numbers from our friends at Can't Predict Ball. It's You Can't Predict Baseball on Twitter. Madison Bumgarner has more Grand Slams this season, he's got 2 of them, than Derek Jeter has in his entire career. It's wild.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Are you okay?
I'm okay with it. No, that's
Look a little
great.
stunned by
Madison,
that.
I mean, that just shows how much more added value Madison Bumgarner's had. I wonder if that factors into like pitcher war. Because if it does, he'd be toward the top of the charts, right?
We'll have
8
to ask
RBIs.
some people. Our buddy Sean Foreman over at Baseball Reference.
I'll give him a call.
All right, do that. And Fantasy Baseball is, of course, brought to you by DraftStreet.com. It's the future of fantasy sports, free one-day leagues where you can win cash prizes. Last week, I went for Carlos Gonzalez. I said, go out there, get him, trade for him before he comes back from the DL. He went 3 for 9 in his first few games back with the Colorado Rockies.
There you go. I had Wilson Ramos, the Nationals catcher. He'd been on a roll. Entire offense had been on a roll. Yadier Molina went down, so that's yet another catcher that if you had, this is a guy to look at. Hit a homer last week. Maybe not the best option at catcher, but, with Joe Mauer hurt, with Yadier Molina hurt, this is a guy you could do worse than Wilson Ramos.
All right, this week we're not going to pick players because it's the break and they don't come back until Friday, but one guy that stood out to you in the first half of the season, of course not Mike Trout or Josh Donaldson, but someone under the radar.
Garrett Richards. Without question, the Angels starting pitcher, 11 wins, 15 quality starts, more than 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 2.55 ERA, a 106 whip, and it's not like a fluke. I mean, his stuff is legitimately dominant. We saw that when he came to Citizens Bank Park earlier this season. This is a guy who wasn't even drafted. His average draft position, composite between Yahoo and CBS and ESPN, was 442nd. which means that he was only drafted in super deep leagues. In most leagues, when completely undrafted, if you picked him up the first month of the season, you're probably in the playoffs.
It's like those 20-team leagues the guys from 2020
Right,
here playing.
exactly.
And my guy was Jose Altuve, 5'5", like you mentioned, 175 pounds, soaking wet, but he's hitting .335. His average draft position, 91st. And he's in the top 10 of a lot of different leagues. When we come back here on Phillies Nation, we've got the batters inbox questions. Ryan will join us. Don't go anywhere. It is Phillies Nation.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation. I'm Ryan Williams here with Pat and Corey, and it's time for our Batters Inbox questions, where the guys debate your question and I'll pick the winner. Ready?
Yes, I am.
Let's see who's going to win this week.
All right, let's do it.
Our first question. Look ahead to the 2015 free agents. Who best fits the Phillies' needs? Pat?
I don't really think there's many out there, but if there's one guy, I think it's James Shields. He's an innings eater, and the Phillies are just going to need starting pitching no matter where it comes from. He's had over 200 innings in 7 straight seasons. It's probably going to be an 8th right here. So again, I don't think that Kyle Kendrick's going to be back. I don't think they're going to bring Roberto Hernandez back. And even if Cliff and Cole are both gone, James Shields can be a nice top of the rotation piece that's not going to be that expensive. And if Cliff and Cole stay, he's a nice number 3 starter. So I think it'll be James Shields.
Can I say nobody? Because outside of starting pitchers, this is a terrible free agent crop of position players this winter. And, you know, I like Rajai Davis's versatility a little bit. I like Colby Rasmus in center field, but neither one of those players fit what the Phillies seem to want to do, which is rebuild over the next 2-3 years. So I don't see how signing any veteran to a multi-year free agent deal jives with what the Phillies plan and should be doing.
I'm going with Corey on that one.
Really?
Yeah.
But you asked
She's
who-
thinking long term.
You
She's
asked
thinking
who it
long
would be.
term.
I picked someone. He didn't pick anyone.
Yeah, but we're thinking long term.
All right, fine.
Natalie has our next Batters Inbox questions, which come from a Phillies fan.
This is Sean from Northeast Philly, and Sean wants to know,
What grade would you give the Phillies at the All-Star break?
F. I got to go F because, you know, I didn't have playoff expectations for this Phillies team, but I thought maybe 85 wins. And they've disappointed in every facet in the first half. They haven't had more than half the lineup hot at the same time. The starting pitching has been there when the bullpen wasn't. The bullpen was there when the starting pitching wasn't. Got to give them an F. This has just been a really dismal first half of the season. As we said earlier in the show, the Phillies are just 500 against teams under 500, and that just tells you what kind of team they are.
All right, this is not a cop-out answer, but I'm going to give them a C, and that's because my expectation was of them being an average or even below average type of a team. Now, if the expectations were higher going into this season, I would say an F, but thinking that they would win 77 to 79 or 80 games, I'm going to give them a C because they're playing just about the way that I thought they would. Now, in different aspects, I thought Dominic Brown would be a little bit better. I thought maybe even Ryan Howard would be, but overall, I didn't think that they would be a playoff type team, so I'm going to give them a C grade.
Did you expect 91 losses? Because that's what they're on pace for.
Not that many, no.
And Pat, you're going to win this one.
All right, I'll take that one.
Can't give him an F.
They deserve an F. I mean, they've been
I see it's a little better.
worst runners in scoring position production in like 45 years. I'm just saying.
Our last question asks, what has been the biggest storyline of the first half of the season? Pat?
I think it's the outbreak of arm injuries. You're seeing all these UCL tears, Tommy John surgery. It's just off the charts this year. Bronson Arroyo is about to have it. That would make 64 players that will have Tommy John surgery from the majors and minors just in 2014 alone. I think the number is something like close to 120 over the last 2 seasons. So you're seeing Masahiro Tanaka, which his arm injury could make the chips fall as far as Cliff Lee or Cole Hamels being traded. So all of these injuries, and Major League Baseball has no idea how to fix any of it.
If Bronson Arroyo needs Tommy John surgery, that tells you all you need to know about the epidemic of UCL tears because he's one of the softest tossing pitchers in all of baseball. My top storyline, I'm going with the American League West. The Oakland Athletics, best record in baseball. The Angels, second best record in baseball. And they've flown under the radar because of how good the A's are. The Angels are my World Series pick. They have the offense, they have the defense, and they have the starting pitching to win it all.
What do you think?
Well, Pat, you're going to win this
All
week.
right, I will take it.
You know, I got to give you the point, too, because the epidemic of arm injuries is the top storyline, so you have my point, too.
Oh, thank you, Corey.
Well, that wraps up our Batters Inbox questions for this week. We want to hear what you have to say, so leave them for us on our Facebook and Twitter page. More Phillies news is coming right up.
Hi, I'm Tommy Green. Today we're going to talk about incidents that happened to me, the craziest thing a catcher ever said to me out on the mound when he come out to me. In particular, and it wasn't in the big leagues, believe it or not. It was in AAA ball with the Richmond Braves, and the current Phillies coach, John Miserock, was my catcher. He came out to the mound one day, and I was struggling a little bit, and he was trying to break the ice a little bit with me, I think, because I was all tensed up and a couple runners on base, and he said, "Hey, Tommy, look over my right shoulder. See the blonde in the stands right there? I'm going out with her tonight. Don't you wish it was you?" And it made me laugh and smile and broke the thing, and I ended up getting out of the inning. And that part, after the game, I mean, during the course of that game, I got better as it went. Kind of broke the ice, took a little bit of tension out of me, helped me that day. Hope this answers that question on what sometimes happens out on the field with a catcher and pitcher.
Thank you, Tommy. Welcome back to Phillies Nation. Corey and Pat with you, and with the unofficial first half of the season. We've got to give out our awards because it's what everyone does. So I'll go first and give you the Cy Young and the MVP. And first off, NL Cy Young, I'm going to go with Adam Wainwright. He's already got a 5 WAR, 12 wins, 138 strikeouts, and a 1.83 ERA. He's had an impressive first half of the season. In the American League, I'm going Chris Sale. I know he was injured, but in a short amount of time, just a 4.1 WAR, an 8-1 record, a 2.08 ERA. Very impressive from both of those pitchers. My MVPs in the NL, again, it's Andrew McCutchen from the Pittsburgh Pirates, 17 homers. He's got a WAR near 5. And in the American League, I think that we can agree on this. It's Mike Trout, a 5.3 WAR. He's on pace for 38 home runs and 126 RBIs. Very, very impressive from those 4 guys.
Well, I half agree with you. I'm with you on Wainwright and Trout.
Okay.
Wainwright right now, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Every year, Adam Wainwright is toward the top of the National League in innings and toward the top in ERA. I'm thinking he might be a Hall of Famer. I don't know what you think, but he's been in a couple World Series. He's a guy that if he has 2 more good years, I think he's right in that discussion.
So you see definitively over Clayton Kershaw, he's your side.
I do, and the reason I say that is because Clayton Kershaw, I put him in the same group right now as Chris Sale. They have completely insane numbers this year, but they've both missed about 5 starts. I think if Kershaw ends up with like 29, 30 starts, he will end up winning it. But right now, you have to look seriously at Wainwright with that 1.83 ERA. I agree with Trout as well. 26 homers, 22 doubles, or 22 homers, 26 doubles, 10 for 10 in steals, 400 OBP. As far as the NL, I'm going a guy from the Brewers, whether it's Carlos Gomez or Jonathan Lucroy. Both of them have hit over 300 this year with a ton of key hits. Carlos Gomez, one of the most well-rounded players in baseball with McCutchen and Trout. And as far as my AL Cy Young, I have Felix Hernandez. The reason for that, he finally has the wins. That's always been the issue. He always had the low ERA, the high Ks, not enough wins. This year, that's not the case. He has them, and he's doing it for a team with Seattle that looks like they're destined for one of those 2 AL wildcard spots.
All right, so those are our MLB awards for the first half of the season. Now it's time for Twitter Trivia. Use the hashtag PNTrivia at Phillies Nation. It's brought to you by Scheib Vintage Sports. Last week, with Clayton Kershaw's impressive scoreless streak in mind, since 2004, which Phillies pitcher had the longest streak of innings pitched without allowing a run? Do you know?
I don't.
It was J.C. Romero.
Really?
Yes, 28 and a third innings in 2008 over 35 games. This week, name the Phillies All-Star who had 7 at-bats in one All-Star game. I bet you can't do that, but if you can, use the hashtag PNTrivia at Phillies Nation. And that's it for us. The thank yous go all around, of course, to the guys at 2020. Brian Michael behind the camera. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you to everyone involved here. It's, of course, brought to you by BQ Basement Systems. He is Corey Seidman. I am Pat Gallen. We are here at Fieldhouse Sports and Beer Hall for Phillies Nation every week. We'll talk to you soon.